He's just a colleague. Stop embarrassing yourself. My wife said that in the middle of a corporate party while standing close to that man, flirting openly. That night, I realized it wasn't jealousy anymore. It was betrayal unfolding before my eyes. My wife took a step forward, holding her drink like a shield. We are at a work event, Daniel. Try not to make a scene. I shook my head, smiling without warmth. Oh, I am not the one putting on a show. Do you want to tell me why you have been so comfortable with Black, as if you have forgotten you are married? She did not answer, just looked back at him, which only made things worse. Black stayed at the bar pretending to be very interested in the rim of his glass. I see how he looks at you, I said. Hell, I saw how you looked back. Julia huffed, putting her drink down with more force than necessary. He is a colleague. You are embarrassing yourself. I moved closer, speaking low enough for only her to hear. No, Julia, you embarrassed me the second you started flirting with him while I was standing 5 meters away like an idiot. That is when Miranda, Julia's boss, appeared, tall, elegant, the kind of woman who could silence a boardroom with a sigh. She slid between us with a slow, feline smile, a wine glass in her hand and fire in her eyes. Everything in order? She asked smoothly, as if this tension were entertainment. Miranda, we are fine. Julia snapped, her voice clipped. I was just having a conversation with your husband, Miranda said coolly, without even turning to Julia. Her attention remained fixed on me. We were discussing startups. By the way, didn't you tell me Daniel was the Daniel Weir? I have read about your app. Julia shifted. This is not the time. Miranda touched my elbow lightly. Oh, but it is exactly the time. The right people are here, and talent like his does not go unnoticed forever. Her words dripped with intention, and I was not sure if she was talking about me or Julia. I met Julia's eyes again. You hear that maybe I should start coming to more of these parties. Julia's expression cracked. She stepped between us, completely ignoring Miranda. You are here to support me, not to flirt with my boss. Miranda let out a laugh, a sharp note that drew a few glances from nearby guests. How ironic, she said, sipping her wine. Coming from you. The air tensed like a string about to break. Julia's lips parted in disbelief. But Miranda turned away with the kind of elegance that made it clear the conversation was over. Julia stared after her, then turned sharply to me. You think I am behaving inappropriately? She hissed. And you let her talk to you like that? Touch your arm that way? What am I supposed to think? I took a step back. I don't know, Julia. Maybe you should ask yourself that the next time you are whispering to Black, as if he knows you better than I do. Her nostrils flared, but she did not speak. She did not have to because her silence said it all. She turned and walked away without another word, her heels biting into the marble as she disappeared into the crowd. And I was left there alone, surrounded by music, glasses, and people I did not know, feeling like the only person in the room without a script. The elevator ride to our apartment felt like the longest 30 seconds of my life. Julia did not speak. She stood beside me, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor indicator, as if it owed her something. The cold glare of the elevator lights reflected off her earrings. Those small, delicate gold hoops I bought her in Santa Barbara. When things seemed simple, when our us felt untouchable, the doors opened with a soft chime, and she walked out without waiting, her heels echoing on the polished hallway. Our apartment looked impeccable. The dim overhead lighting gave everything a museum quality. Sleek kitchen, minimalist art, designer furniture, all arranged with obsessive care, as if the life we presented needed to be more convincing than the one we actually lived. Julia tossed her clutch on the marble island and kicked off her heels with a practiced ease. Careful, I muttered. Don't want Black to see you in anything less than perfect. She spun around. Excuse me, did you hear me? I said, not raising my voice. Say it clearly, Daniel. You have been passive-aggressive all night, so just say it. You think I am cheating on you? I held her gaze for a beat, letting the question breathe between us. No, I said slowly. I think you are hiding something, and you are hiding it behind work. Julia let out a short, bitter laugh. This is rich coming from the man who has missed 3 of my last 5 presentations because of his stara. Don't twist things, I snapped. This is not about priorities, it is about patterns. What patterns? She barked. Do you think I don't notice how often his name comes up? How you start smiling before you even mention it? How you talk about him as if he is your creative twin and I am just your tax deduction? Her lips parted in shock, and for a second, just one, I saw her eyes soften. But she caught herself. "You are unbelievable," she whispered. "So what? Now I can't get along with a coworker." "I didn't say that," I replied calmly, taking a step forward. "I am saying I saw the way he looked at you tonight, as if he already has you. And the worst part is you didn't look away." Silence. Then Julia spoke lower, almost robotically. "He is just a colleague." The phrase landed like a hammer, and Miranda's name quickly added as a sudden diversion. "She let you touch her as if you were her property, laughing about your startup as if she wanted to invest in your sheets. I am supposed to ignore that." I crossed my arms. "You are deflecting." "And you are not," she shot back. "You are jealous of Black, but you let your ego feed on Miranda's attention. Admit it." It felt good. "It felt humiliating," I said, standing there while my wife flirted with another man, watching his boss turn it into some kind of power game. That is how it felt. Julia shook her head and walked into the living room. I followed her. Now slower. "You are turning this into something it is not," she said, sinking into the sofa. I remained standing. "Then explain it to me," I said. "Convince me it is all in my head." She looked at me tiredly, exhausted, as if the mask she had worn all night was starting to crack. "It's easy to talk to Black. That is all. We joke. We understand each other's stress. I know you're stressed too. I have lived it with you." She did not answer. That silence was worse than anything else. "Julia," I said softly, "if something is going on, I need to know. Not because I want to punish you, but because I can't keep defending a marriage that feels like it is defending him." Her eyes drifted to the coffee table, then back to me. "Nothing is going on," she said flatly. "I swear." But her voice did not quite match her words. I nodded slowly, letting the silence stretch until it hurt. Then I turned, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door behind me. The next night, she said she had a late business dinner. She announced it casually while pouring coffee into a travel mug, her tone flat and rehearsed like someone who has practiced every word in the mirror. "Don't wait up, it could be a long one." I looked up from the kitchen table, where I was reviewing invoices for my development team. "Again, Black." She froze for a second, then snapped the lid on the mug. "It's a client dinner. Black is coming too. Amanda from accounting." "It's nothing. Nothing." That word had become her favorite currency lately. Short, sharp, empty. I wanted to push further. Ask for the restaurant name. See if she would trip up, but instead I forced a smile. "Have fun," I said quietly. She gave me a look, half caution, half guilt. Then she grabbed her coat and left. The door closed softly behind her. By 10 p.m., the apartment was silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional wind brushing against the balcony doors. I sat on the sofa in a t-shirt and worn-out jeans, a half-empty glass of scotch sweating on the coffee table. My laptop was open with emails blinking, but I had not written anything in over an hour. I kept watching the time. 11:30, 12:15, 1:42. At 3:03 a.m., the door opened. Julia walked in, her heels clacking faintly on the hardwood floor. She looked tired, not drunk, not disheveled, just drained, like someone who has run out of energy halfway home and let the silence carry her the rest of the way. I stood up slowly, not saying anything at first. She looked up and startled a little at seeing me, still awake. "You didn't have to stay up." I didn't. She took off her coat and draped it over the armchair. "I didn't realize how late it got," she offered. The client kept talking. "Amanda left early and Black." I held up a hand. Her mouth snapped shut. "I don't need the script," I said, my voice flat. "Just tell me one thing." She nodded slowly. "Was it really just a dinner?" Julia's throat moved as she swallowed. "Yes." I studied her face, every blink, every twitch of her mouth. She was not lying. Not exactly, but something in her eyes betrayed her. A flicker of discomfort, as if the question had pierced an armor she did not know was cracking. I moved closer. "You are not good at hiding discomfort, Jules. Not with me. So I will ask you one more time." She held my gaze, her jaw set. "I swear," she said. "We ate. We talked about work. I left. It should have been enough. But it was not, because even if she was not physically cheating, something was shifting under the surface. I could feel it. Not just in her eyes, in mine too." I nodded slowly, more to myself than to her. "Okay," I said. "Get some sleep." She hesitated as if she wanted to say something more, but instead she walked past me and into the bedroom. I stood there for a long moment, still staring at the door she disappeared behind. Then I turned back to the sofa and sat down with my phone in my hand. I opened her text messages. Nothing from her since 7:13 p.m. No updates, no on my way, no sorry it's late, just silence. And that said everything I needed to know, not about the dinner, but about the slow, silent unraveling between us, and how trust, once it comes loose, never ties back the same way. The next day, I left work early. I did not tell anyone, did not make a scene. I just grabbed my coat, nodded to my team, and walked out as if I had somewhere better to be, because I did. For weeks my gut had been screaming, even as my mind tried to rationalize. But last night, that silence when she came home at 3 a.m., the way her eyes could not stay still, that was the final straw. I waited in my car across from her office, watching the glass facade as the sun set behind it. Workers trickled out, suits, tired faces, nervous laughter. Then I saw him. He was in no hurry, no briefcase, no phone glued to his hand. He just walked as if the world owed him nothing and he liked it that way. Confident, relaxed. I started the car. He turned onto a quieter street. I gave him some distance, following far enough behind not to raise suspicion. He finally pulled into a modest residential neighborhood. Unkempt lawns, parked sedans, the kind of street where everything looked like it was from a catalog. He parked in front of a small, two-story house with siding. See, he turned off the engine and just sat there. I parked a few houses down and got out. The wind was sharp, cold enough to sting, but not enough to distract me from what I came to do. Black got out of his car just as I approached. He paused when he saw me. His posture shifted subtly, but you could tell it was a man who recognizes trouble before it reaches his door. "Daniel, right?" he said, smiling faintly. "Everything okay?" He knew exactly why I was there. "Just a quick word," I said calmly. He nodded, sliding his hands into his coat pockets. "Sure, what's up?" I stopped a meter away from him. "I am going to say this only once," I said. "Stay away from my wife." His eyebrows raised. "Funny, Julia." I did not answer with a poker face. "My other wife," he chuckled. "Daniel, come on, you know how it is. Long nights, team projects. Nothing shady." I did not flinch. "She comes home at 3 a.m. from a meeting. No call, no text. And I am supposed to believe it is all professional." "She didn't come here," he said quickly. Too quickly. I stared at him. That slip was all I needed to hear. "I didn't ask you where she went," I said softly. He blinked, realizing. "Look, man," he said now in a low voice, almost pleading. "Nothing is going on. Seriously, we talk. That is all." "You know she is married?" I said. "You have sat across from her husband at events?" "I know," he said, "and I respect that." I leaned in close enough that he had to back up. "Then act like it." The air between us stilled. His facade cracked just enough to show what was underneath. Discomfort, maybe guilt, maybe something worse. I stepped back. "Consider this your only warning." He nodded, exhaling slowly. "Okay." I did not say another word. I just walked back to my car. But as I drove away, something in his face stuck with me. It was not fear or arrogance, just confidence. The quiet kind that says, "I don't think you are going to do anything." And maybe he was right, but I was not done. Not yet. It all started with a sound. Just as the rain picked up, hitting the windshield in fast, desperate patterns, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I was parked outside a 24-hour pharmacy, engine off, watching my own reflection glow faintly in the dark glass. The message was from Julia, still swamped. Just me, a mountain of reports, and a lot of caffeine. "Love you." Underneath a photo. It showed her dimly lit desk, cluttered with folders, printed spreadsheets, 2 coffee cups, and her laptop glowing faintly in the corner. There were papers scattered, messy enough to look realistic, as if the scene had been inhabited for hours. But something was not right. I zoomed in instinctively. The corners of the documents looked too clean, no staple marks. The coffee sleeve had no condensation. And there, just out of focus, a second chair pulled up a little too close. Not across from her desk. Beside it. I stared at the image longer than I should have. Every muscle in my jaw tensed. It was not proof, it was not a confession, but it was not nothing. I tossed the phone onto the seat beside me and leaned back, staring at the car's ceiling. My chest felt tight, as if someone had wrapped an invisible rope around my ribs and was slowly pulling. I wanted to be wrong, to dismiss it as paranoia, but I could not shake the feeling that everything in that photo had been arranged for me, not just sent to me, as if she knew I would ask, and she had rehearsed how to answer. I watched the rain and tried to rationalize. Maybe Black was helping finish a report. Maybe Amanda, the one she said was also staying late, had just stepped out for a coffee. Maybe, but trust does not leave quietly. It crumbles in pieces. And this photo, this was another piece slipping away. I sat there for a long time. Long enough for the windows to fog up. Long enough for my knuckles to ache from gripping the steering wheel without realizing it. At some point I started the car, not to go anywhere, just to feel the engine rumble, just to have something make a noise, besides my own thoughts. I was not ready to go home. Not yet, because home did not feel like home anymore. And if I was being honest, neither did she. I told myself not to go. I sat in the car for almost 20 minutes with the engine idling, watching the steam rise off the windshield as the rain got heavier. I had every excuse ready. It was too late, too irrational, too petty, but the longer I waited, the more that photo burned in my mind. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest like a wire pulled too tight. So I drove. The building was mostly dark when I arrived. A few lights flickered on the upper floors, the glow of cleaning crews polishing what the day had left behind. Julia's office floor still had its lights on, dim and sterile behind thick glass. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked into the lobby. No one stopped me at this hour. No one cared who you were if you walked with enough purpose. Elevator up. 5th floor. My shoes made no sound on the hallway carpet. The silence felt unnatural, as if the building itself were holding its breath. I reached the marketing wing and turned the corner slowly. That is when I saw them through the wide glass walls of a conference room. Not at her desk as she had claimed. It was Julia and Black sitting next to each other. They were not touching, not whispering, but they were not working either. The papers on the table looked untouched, the laptops open but idle. Black was leaning back in his chair, relaxed, smiling at something. Julia was turned slightly towards him, her eyes bright, her fingers toying with the corner of a report, as if she did not even realize she was doing it. I stood there, just out of frame, far enough not to be seen, watching them in a moment that did not belong to me, and I felt something break. It was not anger, no? At first it was sadness, the thick, sinking kind that takes your breath away and makes your heart feel too big for your chest. I walked in. They did not notice right away. It was not until Julia laughed. That light, effortless sound I had not heard in months, that she turned slightly and froze. Her smile vanished. "Daniel," she said, surprised. Black straightened up, the smile disappearing from his face. I did not move. Julia stood up quickly, smoothing down her skirt as if she needed something to do with her hands. "I thought you were home." I looked around slowly. The room, the untouched papers, the way the chair was too close. The silence that now swallowed all the laughter that had lived there just seconds before. "Is this your desk now?" I asked. She flinched. We needed room to spread out. Black stood up too, holding his hands out slightly as if in surrender. "Daniel, man, we were just going over some Q4 stuff. That is all." I stared at him. I remembered his face when I warned him in front of that residential house, the calm he wore like armor. The way he nodded as if he had heard. "Do you remember what I told you?" "Yeah, I remember." "Then why are you still here?" His lips parted as if he were ready to answer, but Julia stepped in. "Stop," she said, moving between us. "Nothing is going on." "I told you." I looked at her. I really looked at her. She was not guilty. She was not angry. She was tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of pretending the lines were not blurry. Tired of the conversation we had both been avoiding since the night I first saw her with him by that bar. "I am not an idiot, Julia. I never said you were, but you are treating me like one." She opened her mouth to speak, but said nothing. She just looked down. That was enough. I turned and walked out. I did not wait for an explanation. I did not throw a final comment over my shoulder. I just left because I finally understood. It did not have to be physical to feel like a betrayal. Sometimes it is the energy, the eye contact, the quiet, effortless intimacy that used to belong to you and now does not. And as I walked down that silent hallway with the hum of the vending machine as the only sound in the world, I realized something I had not wanted to admit before. She was already gone. The coffee shop Miranda chose was not loud, but not quiet either, busy enough to drown out private conversations under the rustle of newspapers, milk steamers, and the occasional soft jazz track from hidden speakers. She was already there when I arrived in a corner booth, perfectly upright, with a black blazer over her shoulders, as if it had been tailored for this very hour. A small, untouched cappuccino sat in front of her with the foam still perfect. She smiled when she saw me. No, a warm smile, not the kind you give a friend. Mirandalon smiled as if she had always known you would end up right where she wanted you. And now that you were here, the real conversation could begin. Daniel, she said, rising just enough to offer her hand. You look well, though I imagine last night didn't feel that way. I slid into the seat across from her, ignoring the dig. Thanks for meeting me. She waved it off with a gesture, her fingers adorned with thin silver rings that glinted in the morning light. I was curious how long it would take you to come looking for me. I did not bother to play innocent. You said once that everything in the office is monitored. Cameras in the hallways, conference rooms, desks. She nodded slowly. Internal policy, legal security, human resources. You know how it goes. You signed the visitor's authorization last year at Julia's launch event. Remember? I remember. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. I want the recordings. Her eyebrow arched a little. Do you know exactly which days? Last Thursday, this Monday, last night. I did not speak immediately, just tilted my head as if she were studying me for signs of hesitation. What do you expect to find, Daniel? Clarity, I said. Proof, whichever word you like, but I am not leaving here without access. She leaned back, her fingers wrapping around the rim of her cup. You don't even want to know what is on them first, I said firmly. I want to see it for myself. Every minute. I will decide what it means. Her smile sharpened. I admire that, she said. Most men come to me asking for an interpretation. You are asking for control. I am done asking for explanations. Miranda tapped the table once with her nail. I will have a folder ready by tomorrow. I will email you a password and a cloud link. You will find what you are looking for, she paused, then added. But I should know that most of it is perfectly, almost painfully, professional. I nodded once. That is what makes the cracks easier to see. Her expression did not change, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Interest, amusement, maybe both. I have to say I liked your little outburst last night, she murmured. That kind of energy does not belong to the weak. I did not react. She leaned forward slightly, her voice softer. Now men like you don't lose power, they just stop using it until it is the right time. I am not interested in games, I said. Of course you are, she replied, sipping her coffee. You just prefer to play with better pieces. I stood up. I will be waiting for the files. Miranda's smile did not fade. You will have them. Walking back out into the bright October morning, the air felt colder, sharper. The city moved around me in its usual rhythm, indifferent and endless. But something inside me had shifted. This was not about jealousy anymore. It was about the truth. And once I had it in my hands, no one, not Black, not Julia, not even Miranda, could rewrite the story again. The smell of fresh coffee woke me before the sun. Soft jazz was playing faintly in the background. One of those ambient playlists Julia used to put on Sundays when mornings meant quiet affection and leftover waffles. The scent of our bedroom diffuser floated in the air as if someone were trying too hard to recreate peace. I opened my eyes and found her there. Julia, sitting on the edge of the bed in a baggy t-shirt mine, with 2 mugs in her hand, and that familiar smile tilted just enough to feel rehearsed. Good morning, she said lightly. I thought I would bring it today. A peace offering. I sat up slowly. My back ached. I had not slept well in days. She put the coffee on my nightstand and took me by the shoulders. Her hands began to massage gently, her thumbs pressing into the muscles as if she still remembered where the stress lived. Too much screen time, she whispered. I did not flinch, but I did not melt either. Instead, I looked out the window, watching the gray city slowly wake up. Rough night? She asked, still massaging my back. You could say that. She paused. I felt the hesitation in her hands before she pulled away, sitting beside me. I know we have been distant, she began softly. And I know I have been distracted, but it is not what you think. So what is it? She looked down at her mug. The steam rose between us like a veil. Work has been crazy. Black has been helping with the overflow. I guess I leaned on him more than I should have. She looked at me now, but it was not emotional, and it was definitely not physical. I studied her face. The sincerity was there. The kind people summon when they feel the stakes are rising, but it was too polished, too timely. You said the same thing last night. Because it is the truth. I took the coffee and sipped it. It was perfect, just how I liked it. She noticed and smiled wider, as if that meant something. But the truth is it did not mean anything. Anna Maria's when we bought this place, I said suddenly. She blinked, thrown by the change. Sure, you were still working at Chandal building your company out of our spare bedroom, and I was running all over town pitching campaigns to clients who couldn't remember my name. She laughed softly. Yeah, we were a mess, but we were a team. It trailed off. That word team used to mean something between us. It was our anchor. Now it just felt like a memory we kept dusting off to convince ourselves it still fit. I miss that version of us, she whispered. I nodded. Me too. She leaned in her hand resting on my chest. Then let's fix it. I looked at her fingers, the same ones that used to trace my ribs when I could not sleep. You don't fix a broken mirror by polishing the reflection, I said. Her breath hitched a little. Do you think this is beyond repair? I looked her in the eye. I think I don't recognize what we are trying to save anymore. The silence between us grew. She pulled her hand back, her fingers curling in her lap. You are turning your back on me. No, I said. You just stopped reaching for me. I did not speak after that. We sat there side by side on the edge of the bed with the coffee getting cold in our hands. Two people surrounded by the life they built. One room, two walls, a story hanging between them like a thread fraying at both ends. She stood up after a while. I will be late tonight, she said without meeting my eyes. There is a strategy review. Of course, I replied, my voice flat. She left the room silently. I stared at the door long after she closed it. This was emotional distance. Not shouting matches, not affairs in the dark, just a slow erosion disguised as routine. And I was not going to live inside that lie any longer. A week passed, 7 days of silence, carefully disguised as routine. She dressed. She went to work. She came home late. I nodded, smiled when I had to. We talked about groceries, the apartment, the weather, but we did not talk about us not once. So when the knock came at 8:42 p.m., I already knew who it was. Miranda did not wait to be invited in. She swept through the door as if she owned it, holding a bottle of wine in one hand and a thin leather folder in the other. Her perfume arrived a few seconds before she did, sharp, clean, deliberate. She looked around, taking in the silent apartment, then raised an eyebrow. Home alone. I nodded. She is at a seminar. Miranda's smile deepened. Of course she is. She handed me the folder without ceremony and walked to the kitchen as if she had been here before. She poured 2 glasses. I stood in the center of the living room, staring at the folder in my hands. It was not thick, maybe 10 pages, but it felt heavier than anything I had ever held. Aren't you going to open it? She asked, handing me a glass. I put the wine down and opened the folder. The first picture was grainy, a frame from a hallway camera. Julia and Black walking together, laughing, her hand brushing his forearm as they turned a corner. The next was inside a conference room. She was sitting on the edge of the desk. He was standing between her knees, not touching, but close, too close. Then came the ones that changed everything. Julia laughing over Black at the office desk with his shirt unbuttoned, his tie loose around his neck like a secret. His face turned towards the camera for half a second, not surprised, not scared, just lost in the moment, as if I had never existed. A lump formed in my throat. I flipped through the next few images, even though I could not unsee the first. The timestamps told the story clearly. The nights she was late, the nights she sent pictures of her stack of reports were not just lies, they were planned. Say something, Miranda murmured, her voice now low. I could not. My jaw was locked. I stared at the last picture until my vision blurred. Then I put the folder down, picked up my phone, and threw it. It shattered against the far wall, the pieces raining down on the floor as if it had exploded from the inside. Miranda did not flinch. Instead, she came over, placing a hand gently on my shoulder. Her voice was a whisper. She was never going to tell you. I did not answer. She leaned in, and for the first time her flirtation was gone. What was left was something else, something quieter. Pity. Admiration, a strange mix of both. I told you, she said. Power does not leave a man like you. It just waits for the right time. My breathing was shallow. I had seen a lot in my life. Failure, debt, self-doubt. But this was something else entirely. This was betrayal in high definition. She took my wine glass and set it aside. She slipped both arms around me in a hug that felt both strange and necessary. You needed the truth, she whispered. And now, she added, you can finally decide what to do with it. I did not speak. I just stood there wrapped in my wife's boss's arms, surrounded by glass, paper, and a silence that no longer felt empty. It felt decisive because this was the moment I stopped waiting for Julia to change and started writing the ending myself. It was just after midnight when the deadbolt turned. I did not move. I was already sitting in the living room with a glass in my hand, the folder Miranda gave me resting neatly on the coffee table like a loaded weapon. The apartment was dim, only the lamp by the bookshelf casting its soft golden glow on the hardwood floor. Miranda was sitting across from me cross-legged, swirling her wine glass, as calm as a queen awaiting her subject's confession. Then the door opened. Julia walked in. Her heels slowed as she saw us. Miranda, serene, me silent. And then she stopped completely. The door clicked shut behind her. Her coat hung loose on her shoulders, her blouse slightly wrinkled. She looked tired, but not from work. It was the kind of tired you get after pretending for too long. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes shifted between us, then to the folder on the table. Finally, she whispered, I can explain. No, Miranda said, cutting her off. Her tone was precise. Cold, but not cruel. It's too late, honey. Julia flinched as if the words had physically struck her. She looked at me, her eyes now wide, filled with something. Shame, panic, loss. It was never my intention for you to find out. I asked quietly. She shook her head. To hurt you. I laughed once, just once. Not with amusement, more with disbelief. You think this is about hurt? She took a slow step forward. Daniel, I was confused. Things at home were not. Don't, I said, standing up. I saw it. I pointed to the folder. Everything. She froze, her mouth slightly open. Every lie, every excuse, every night you said it was just work. I watched you turn our marriage into background noise so you could feel wanted in a boardroom. Her breath hitched. She made a move to sit, but Miranda's voice stopped her. That seat is taken. Julia turned back surprised. You knew? She asked Miranda. Smiled faintly. I saw it. Julia's face crumbled. You have been manipulating me. I did not, Miranda countered. You manipulated yourself. I just let the camera roll. A choking silence. I walked to the window, looking out at the city, alive and indifferent. So many lights, so many lives. And in one apartment, a woman who betrayed the man she once swore she could not live without. Do you want him? I asked without turning around. Julia swallowed. No, it wasn't about that. Then what was it about? She did not answer, because the truth would not save her now. I turned back slowly, the glass still in my hand. I am done. Julia, she nodded weakly, her eyes wet. Please, don't do this like this. You did this, I said. I am just finally reacting as someone who knows the truth. She took one last step towards me, but there was nothing left between us that could bridge the distance. Miranda stood up, finishing her wine. Well, she said, putting the glass down. I think that concludes the presentation. Julia looked at her pleadingly. Are you enjoying this? Miranda tilted her head. No, I am just not going to apologize for offering clarity. She walked past Julia and touched my arm gently. Call me tomorrow, she said quietly. Just me. Then she left. The door closed with more finality than any word Julia could offer. We were left there alone, but we were not together. I watched her shoulders slump, as if she finally realized the war was over and she had lost. 3 weeks later, the boardroom smelled like cold coffee and consequences. I sat near the back. I did not speak. I did not need to. Miranda stood at the front, serene as ever, flanked by 2 board members and an HR representative who looked like she would rather be anywhere else. Across the table sat Julia, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup, a pale blue jacket she used to wear on launch days, the kind that said, "Look how capable I am." Now it looked like armor that had forgotten how to protect her. The evidence was presented without cruelty, without drama, just a factual, silent dismantling, surveillance footage, inconsistencies in client reports, unauthorized use of company resources during overtime hours. She did not argue. She did not cry. She just sat there frozen in that stillness that only comes when you know there is nothing left to defend. When Miranda finally closed the folder and said, "This board finds grounds for immediate termination," Julia did not flinch. Not until another person stood up and collected her ID badge. That is when her chin trembled, not with guilt, but with humiliation. They asked her to leave the premises immediately. And just like that, Julia Benet, the golden girl of the creative division, once praised in Forbes's 30 Under 30 to Watch list, was escorted out of the building with a cardboard box and a security card uselessly clipped to her lapel. I followed her, but a few steps behind. Not to gloat, not to haunt, just to see it. To see the moment her carefully constructed facade cracked completely under the weight of her own choices. Outside, the wind was sharp. She turned once halfway down the stairs and saw me. Our eyes met for 3 seconds. Then she looked away and kept walking. That same afternoon, Miranda and I sat on a bench outside the courthouse, each with a paper cup of burnt coffee. She tapped my knee with hers. Well, that was satisfying. I let out a dry laugh. You live for that kind of thing, don't you? I live for the truth, she said, sipping her coffee. And for the moments that feel like the universe is finally listening. She studied me for a second. You seem lighter. I am. It was not joy. It was not vindication. It was something quieter. The feeling of being in your own skin without apology. I looked at her. Miranda had been many things. A catalyst, an accomplice, a witness, and maybe something more. She smiled softly. So what now? I leaned back on the bench, watching a flock of pigeons scatter across the street as if they knew winter was coming. Now we start over, I said. She arched an eyebrow. We? I turned to her. I am not rushing anything, I said. But I am also not dragging the past into my next chapter. Miranda nodded. Something warm settled behind her gaze. Well, she said, tossing her cup in the bin beside us. If we are going to start over. She held out her hand, offering it to me. Hi, I'm Miranda. I shook it, smiling for the first time in weeks. Daniel. And just like that, without fireworks, without revenge, but with a quiet clarity, the story ended. Not with what was lost, but with what I was finally ready to receive.